Hi everyone, welcome to the Zombie Apocalypse edition of Farsight's Human News, the news show that tells you what is going to happen, not what did happen. I will explain why I am calling it the Zombie Apocalypse edition in a bit, so hold on. I am Courtney Brown, director of the Farsight Institute, and in case you didn't notice, our news show that was released in April forecasting the major news in May 2020 was really spot on. I will review that in a bit also. So there are huge changes in the world heading our way this month, in June 2020. This edition of Farsight's Human News is being released on June 1st, and it forecasts the major news events that will happen during June 2020. If we are as correct with June as we were with May, this is going to be one heck of a month. But first, here is a summary of the major stuff happening at Farsight. As you know, we now have our new streaming service, farsightprime.com. There you can get all of our major releases, past, present, and future. Plus, we have the extraterrestrial news show, Farsight's ET News, that is published on the 7th of each month, a week after this show that you are now watching on YouTube. The extraterrestrials are watching you. It is time for you to watch them. They are up to all sorts of stuff, weird stuff, and you need to know what they're up to on farsightprime.com in 1 week. The next day, on the 8th, there is the Farsight Intelligence Briefing hosted by myself, and this is live streamed to our farsightprime.com subscribers each month. Subscribers can join and ask questions live. The Intelligence Briefing is styled after the Deep Deep that normally is reserved only for national leaders, but we think you deserve that even more than the national leaders. Here I am able to talk about things that I really cannot talk about on any other venue. There are no censors on farsightprime.com. Then, on the 15th of June, we will release our next major Farsight Mysteries project, The Mystery of Göbekli Tepe. Now, as most of you know, Göbekli Tepe is an archaeological site in Turkey, a small city that showed evidence of hugely advanced civilization in the manner in which the buildings were constructed out of impossibly large blocks of stone. And then the entire thing was buried under many meters of stone rubble. There are all sorts of speculation as to who built it over 8,000 years ago and who could have buried it and why. Most people think the residents buried it. But who the heck buries their own city? Well, we now know who built it, how it was built, why it was buried, and who buried it. And no, nothing that you heard from the archaeologists or on TV shows is correct. As far as the mainstream ideas are concerned, it is none of the above. Our data make perfect sense. They are the only data that make sense. Get ready for the shock of a lifetime. The Mystery of Göbekli Tepe, released only on farsightprime.com on the 15th of June, 2020. Additionally, on farsightprime.com, we have our economic forecast that comes out in the third week of the month. And this month it will be a 2-month forecast for the SP 500. Now last month it was oil. And I am fully aware that most people in our audience are not interested in oil futures or even the SP 500. But we are aiming these forecasts not at investors, but rather at our audience, because the forecasts give us a window into the larger picture of the developing human drama. The news that you see on your televisions and even outside your windows each day. What happens on the streets today is so closely tied to what happens economically worldwide. For example, the current coronavirus pandemic affected the prices of oil and stocks in a major way. And following oil and stocks tells us how the world is adapting to the new social and political reality that we find ourselves in. So watch the forecast. It's like watching the news, but through a different window. And also last month, in May 2020, we began a new Farsight interview series, where we interview some of the major players in Farsight's effort to free this world from its current shackles. I am the host of the show, and the first interview was with Arkie, a remote viewer and personal friend who has long participated in Farsight news forecasts and who has given me deep insight into world topics over the years. That interview is out now on farsightprime.com. The next scheduled interview will come out at the end of June, and that will be with a different Farsighter. Get ready for a surprise. Trust me, you will want to see this new series, Behind the Scenes Talk of the Deep Deep. We have also begun to live stream presentations with our viewers. We do those live on YouTube, and the next day post edited versions with improved audio and video on farsightprime.com. Now last month had live stream presentations with Trudy Benjamin and Princess Jeaneé. Tons of people participated, had great fun, and they learned a lot about what goes on behind the scenes in their lives and at Farsight. Again, these were live streamed to the general public on Farsight's YouTube channel, Farsight Press. So, how do you hear about these things so that you can participate and get the latest when they happen? Well, there are two things that you need to do. First, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel and remember to click on the notifications bell that appears after you subscribed. That is the only way YouTube will notify you of the new events. Just subscribing doesn't do anything. The notifications bell is the important part. Second, you need to subscribe to our free email newsletter found on our website at farsight.org. Those are the only two ways you can hear about the live streams and our other events. Be sure to do both. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Farsight Press, and subscribe to our free email newsletter on our website. The links are in the description area below this video. Those are how we announce what we do. Finally, PrinCess Jeaneé continues to teach our version of remote viewing, SRV, or scientific remote viewing. Our methods are much more highly structured than those that were originally developed by the U.S. military. So, for those of you who want to learn our way of doing things, PrinCess Jeaneé teaches online courses to both individuals one-on-one as well as groups. You can contact her at princessviews@gmail.com. She will also be giving courses on other topics related to remote viewing in the future, such as how some people do associative remote viewing and even how we at Farsight use remote viewing for personal forecasts relating to investments, business decisions, and even life decisions. Our final announcement is that we will be releasing a major new 5-year forecast on a cryptocurrency this month. That will be priced separately and released on our website, farsight.org, so keep on the lookout for it. So, to summarize, here is the timeline of the Farsight events to happen this month, June 2020. Farsight Human News is released on YouTube on the 1st, and you are watching that right now. Farsight ET News is released on June 7th. Then I will be hosting the live Farsight Intelligence Briefing to the subscribers of FarsightPrime.com on June 8th. On June 15th, there is the major release of our new Mysteries project, The Mystery of Göbekli Tepe, only on FarsightPrime.com. And during the third week of June, we have the release of the Farsight Economic Forecast on FarsightPrime.com that focuses on the SP500. There will also be a Farsight interview during the month, and there will be free live streaming events on YouTube during the month. So you need to be subscribed to our Farsight newsletter to be notified of that in advance, and so be sure to go to our website and sign up for our free newsletter where we will announce the YouTube live streaming events. Now, let's review what happened with our May Human News forecast, which we published in April 2020. As you all know, April was a month of worldwide lockdown because of the coronavirus. Thus, in that context, we had no reason to suspect that May would explode the way it did. But that's what our forecast said would happen, and it happened just like that. First, Melena Hall, Princess Jeaneé, and Arkie all perceived major violent protests in urban areas mixed with looting and confrontations with the police. Details were amazingly accurate, even down to the types of structures involved. Riots have rocked the United States in particular, and without mentioning any names, even one of our own remote viewers was tear-gassed and shot with rubber bullets while peacefully watching the protests. I have noticed that this happened even to some mainstream news reporters. The riots have been a surprise to everyone, and no one was more surprised by all of this than us, and we saw it coming. One of the reasons that we were so surprised is that our remote viewing sessions really are done totally blind, and when they turn out to be true, and especially when they affect us, it is inevitably one of those, oh wow moments. Never a dull moment here at Farsight. Additionally, Arkie also forecasted an event that involved a missile attack on a ship, leaving the ship destroyed in the water. As it turned out, an event that exactly matched what was described by happened during the month when Iran mistakenly fired a missile on one of its own ships, destroying the ship, killing and wounding many. It was a major news event that was widely reported. In terms of the other forecast, Kahmia Dunson had a forecast relating to the ongoing nature of the coronavirus pandemic, which was useful since some people at the time were speculating that the whole thing may just go away by itself in a few weeks. Our forecast said it was here to stay for a much longer period of time. Then, Aziz had a forecast of an event where a male subject left his apartment carrying a long knife or sword, ran outside and was confronted by police and shot dead. Well, this forecast was presented as a window into the decaying condition of mental health for many during the pandemic-related lockdown. And that is exactly what happened in Las Vegas. A mentally ill male left his apartment, ran outside, and had an encounter with the police that was exactly like that which was described by Aziz. The entire incident was captured on video by police body cams, so you can say that knife attacks happen all the time. But the level of detail between the forecasted event and what Aziz described is chillingly accurate. And we presented this forecast as a report on mental health in the days of the lockdown, and that is exactly what the incident involved: mental health. The only session for which we were not able to obtain feedback was for a forecast of an event that was to occur underground, like in a mine or possibly underwater. Remember that we are dealing with a reality that really is structured by multiple and/or parallel timelines, as I've explained and written about often. There will always be major and minor variations between the timelines, so it is not possible to predict every future event no matter who is doing the remote viewing. But all in all, May was a surprisingly newsworthy month and a banner month for our Farsight Human News forecasts. Now, let's move on to this month's news forecast for June 2020. Just so that you know the context, most of these remote viewing sessions that you're about to see were done early in May, much before the death of George Floyd on the 25th of May 2020, and the subsequent national riots in the United States. So our remote viewers had no prior expectations that May would turn out the way it did when they did their sessions for June. In fact, the normal expectations were the opposite, with the coronavirus pandemic still limiting outside activity of all sorts. I will give you the date that the paper versions of the remote viewing sessions were completed later in this presentation so that you can place each of the forecasts in the proper context. If I were forced to use only 2 words to describe what our remote viewers collectively see for June 2020, I would probably have to use the words that one of our remote viewers used in her own session: a zombie apocalypse. Not literally, of course, but sort of like that in many ways. Remember, we could always be wrong, and all remote viewing must be seen as an experiment, not certainty. But look at the data for yourself, make your own decisions, and then let's watch the month of June roll out to see what actually happens. 6 remote viewers participated in this month's project: Aziz Brown, PrinCess Jeaneé, Melena Hall, Trudy Benjamin, Kahmia Dunson, and Arkie. So we have 6 reports for you today. So let's begin. Since all of the sessions seem to relate to what we might loosely call the zombie apocalypse model, we're going to present them one after another without any introduction by myself. However, I will return after all of the reports are presented to help you pull everything together, which is weird to say when the forecast seems to suggest that everything is falling apart.
Hi, today we are looking at target 84692369. So I'm getting a wide open landscape with a lot of wide structures on it, a little bit of hills over here, but mostly these wide tannish structures. It kind of gives me this drier feel, almost like a place like Texas or something like that. I'm getting a lot of commotion, particularly in one area, like moving subjects, sort of like a running subject. I'm going to give another sketch of that. So there's a lot of subjects and some vehicles behind these subjects. This is all sort of like wider structures, and they're all sort of huddled around this main structure. This main structure has this sort of logo-y type of thing up there, and it's just big, wide structure, and it has all these subjects outside, and those subjects are really, really heated. They're yelling, they're loud words, they have this really angry, exasperated, frustrated type of vibe to them. Let's do a little more probing. Okay, so there's subjects inside the structure, there are subjects outside the structure. The subjects outside the structure, collectively, just doing a collective deep mind probe, they have this anger, frustration, and a desire, like a want or a need from the subjects inside this big wide structure. And they, that want, that need is, they really want something to be done, or they want something from the people in here. It's almost like a protest outside of like a government building or something like that. But it's that seems to be what's going on. Let's do a collective deep mind probe of what's the energy inside the building, the structure. Okay, there's a sort of a mix. There's a lot of there's a couple different subjects inside of the structure, and they're in different areas, but overall, the overarching feel is sort of this hierarchy of feeling above or aloof with regards to this riffraff on the outside. I guess that would be sort of how they would describe it, is they sort of feel superior in a sense, but they also have this sense of calmness and aloofness. Not really calm, they just feel aloof in the sense of like, okay, we'll deal with that type of thing. It's like, it's not, ironically, it is something that is literally at their doorstep, but it doesn't feel like it's something that is causing them the most amount of stress possible. It feels like something that's sort of an annoyance that they feel better than. But yeah, let's go inside the structure. Let's figure out more stuff, because there's a mix. There's some other emotions in there that's not aligned with what I just said. So let's check it out. Let's take it apart. Okay, so these guys at the top, these are the ones that have the majority of that calmness, the aloofness, the feeling of superiority towards the riffraff, these guys at the bottom. That feeling of being better than, or being part of something greater. They sort of have this idea like, we're just following the plan. This is just, there's an agenda going forward and we're sticking to it. And this is just manageable cost of doing business type of thing. And they feel very disconnected with what's going on outside. But these subjects down here on the first floor, they have a completely different story. There's a few of them. They're sort of scattered. They're not really, these guys are sort of in a focused conversation. These guys are not really like that. They're just sort of separate, and like these guys are, this guy's standing at one end of the room, this guy's at the other, this person's way over there behind this sort of desk. And they all give this relative degrees of anxiety, fear, worry, confusion, not really knowing what's going on and not really feeling like they're in control of anything good. So they feel a lot less in the know as these guys on the top floor are. And yeah, that seems to sum it up pretty well. We're going to investigate these guys at the top just a little bit more and find out a little bit more about what's going on with them. So I'm going to erase this and we'll do another sketch. Okay, so this is the primary subject upstairs. He's behind the desk. He sort of seems like the guy in charge. He has this sort of feeling like a catch-22 inside of his head. He's got this, he's stressed, he's frustrated, he feels like he's caught between a rock and a hard place. He still has that whole like aloofness, this whole like, okay, I'm the guy, you know, he feels like he's definitely knows he has this superiority, but it's not like he's having a good time with it. It's not like he's completely disconnected with the idea that he's not in the most ideal of situations. He just feels frustrated, caught in a bind, caught in a catch-22. He really can't fix anything. He doesn't really feel like he has the power to do much. But yeah, catch-22 is the best way to describe him. There's these like little sounds that are like coming from outside that are like sounds of like yelling and like some bangs and some pops and maybe like glass breaking. It doesn't mean like they're like the windows breaking or anything like that, but I just hear the sound of like a glass breaking. Maybe that's like a bottle being smashed on the ground or something like that. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like general commotion, general objects breaking type of commotion. And I mean, it just seems like all of that's sort of at a muffled rate, because it just seems like there's a lot of commotion, a lot of angry people outside, or angry subjects outside. And this guy, not very happy subject, but he's inside, and he has that sort of superiority complex with him. Anyway, continuing on, let's keep moving around. Okay, so I probed for just the cause of the event, just the cause of what's going on here, what's the main driving force of what's happening. And I just get this image of like a dude and this greenish gas type of air something. It's like bad air. It's like this thing in the air, and the image I just sort of saw was like a greenish gas. But it's I mean, I'm not sure if you can see the green very well, so I did it again in black. But still, it's like, it just feels like there's something in the air that is not good, and it's interacting with people, and it's something that is a cause for alarm, that it led to a chain of events that culminated in this event that we're looking at right now, where there is an angry group of people outside of a building and some people at the top of that building who are people, I guess, in a position of power, but they're not really budging on whatever is angry about those people in the who are causing some ruckus out in the front. And let's move to the initial moment of this event. Yeah, the initial moment is pretty much the same scene as what we've described. It just seems like first the car pulls up, first some people come up, and people just slowly start collecting around this building and start making their voices heard, start yelling and, you know, causing a bit of a ruckus, showing that they're angry, showing they have some emotions that aren't too good about whatever's happening, which is related to this.
Seven 1924905. My basic gestalts here are land structures, and I see subjects, a lot of subjects here. My land, I have a base surface, level, very level topography, natural and man-made. I have water, man-made smells, mounds or hills. There's foliage around, all around, and movement on the base surface, a lot of movement. I am seeing one non-surface structure. I want to move to the center of the target to get a feel of what's going on here, because right now all I'm seeing is the, just subjects and a non-surface structure. I have multiple structures. They all look very similar, very flat tops, brown, tan in color, black even. See smoke coming from the structures. I want to move to the target activity to get a better look at what's going on here. The subjects have a very, very focused energy, but also very scattered. It seems focused on the thing that's scattering the energy. Some here are authority officials, maybe police. Others have a civilian type of feel to them, opposition, two sides. I'm feeling accusations, disagreements. triggers, or someone or something is triggered, trapped, unfair. I doing a collective deep mind probe of all of the civilians. They feel very unhappy. Again, they feel trapped, uneasy, emotional discomfort. I have fear for safety. A fear for safety is here. I'm going to do a collective deep mind probe for the authority figures that are here as well. Moving into their minds, there's a mixed mindset here. Some do not want to be here. Others don't care. They're just following orders. There's a lot of commotion and movement back and forth with a lot of activity here. It reminds me of the Hunger Games, not necessarily like the fighting for it, but just that the energy of the movie, you know, if you've seen it. Moving inside the structures, I want to go 2 weeks prior to all of this, because I'm trying to get a feel for why and what exactly is happening, or what this even looks like, if it still looks the same, because I'm getting a hard time putting things together. Moving back 2 weeks prior, it doesn't seem to be torn down. My structures here seem to have in the target time, they seem to have a bit of a tattered or torn look to them. But prior to this, it doesn't seem to have a similar look. Something is planned. The structures are in good shape. I want to take a look 2 weeks after all of everything is going on to see if things are still looking the same or exactly what's going on here. Moving inside the structure 2 weeks after, it's very dark inside. The structures are empty. It looks like there's smoke, but it does not smell like smoke. I hear a pulsating, chaotic energy, something feel maybe like music. I don't necessarily think it's music, but just that pulsating beat of some sort, or repetition, chaotic energy. I'm starting to feel very hot and clammy all of a sudden. I'm going back and forth here to just kind of pinpoint and see what's happening. 2 weeks before the target time, there are lights inside the structure. There are hallways, doors, rooms on each corner or on each side, just going straight down. There are subjects, but they're not many. Very business casual clothing, male and female. It almost kind of reminds me of the front of a hospital or school inside of the structure. Bare walls, white or cream colors, or plain colors. Subjects walking around, talking, multicultural. The majority of the subjects are tan or brown, but there are also some different cultures here as well. Again, multicultural. I hear different languages or different dialect than English, but I hear multiple different languages and dialects here. Going into the structure inside at this time, the lighting at target time is very dim. So before it was very bright, here plain, and here is kind of dim. Movement, chaotic energy, not good. Does not feel good here. It doesn't feel good here. I have a sense of fraudulent energy, negative. It's having a negative effect on the people. Here, very polarized, opposition, things being done in secret. There's just this edgy feeling that's going on here. I hear a tussle, loud noises like an alarm. There's wah, wah, like this blaring sound, pulsating sound. It produces panic or frantic-like behavior throughout all the people here. A lot is just going on here. I don't like the energy of the people. Very abrupt movements with the subjects. There's dragging and grabbing and yanking, throwing, pulling. I'm hearing popping sounds. It's just a sense of catastrophe, yelling. Things are just coming undone. Moving outside of the structure, it's just heavily guarded. Lots of cars parked in front of the building. Vehicles or trucks, blinking lights. I see smoke coming out of the building, around the structure, yelling voices. Multiple subjects and sirens. I hear sirens. I see like this roadblock and this barricade of things, to not get past a certain place. Barricades. I hear crying. People are sad. It reminds me of a terrorist attack, but this is not a terrorist attack. It just has the energy and the feelings of it, or the things the dismay that may come after the terrorist attack. I want to see if this is still going on in the future, as 2 weeks into the future, as I'm bouncing around here. There's a lot of residual energy, smoky or dusty, unsafe, possible gas smells, dim, dark, quietness. There are a few cars outside. Looks like caution tape, caution signs, or do not go in, no enter, like a thing that says don't go in here, blocked off. The place looks very dead. It looks very dead now. So there's 3 different viewpoints that I'm seeing, which is the before, the during, and the after, and they all are drastically different.
I see level topography. I see nearby structures, but they are spaced out. Also, this tall tower structure next to this flat top structure. I hear a lot of stumping noises, a lot of movement above and below, but I'm hearing like stumping noises, a lot of walking around from subjects here in this area. I'm getting a group of subjects here in front of this wide building. Looking towards these subjects, I get a weird vibe. Subjects look bad, but subjects also feel exhausted and dehydrated. I got a lot of weak subjects in this group here. I'm hearing noises above. I see a non-surface structure above this, like going around and around this area. It's like it's monitoring this area. From 1,000 feet, I see a city nearby and also water. This non-surface structure has a sense of destroying things. This seems like a troublemaker going around just analyzing different subjects, which these subjects are very ruthless and very hard-headed. They just seem like they're brainwashed subjects and they look very sick. A lot of harsh man-made ground, a lot of dirt, street, concrete type of area. There's like dust and dirt as well, a little mixture of the natural side of the ground, but majority of a hard man-made ground. but I'm also getting a natural feel. I'm seeing peaks in the very, very distant, very, very distant. This area overall seems very high class, but it looks like it's been a disaster. Things are very deserted from each other, and it just seems like the Wild Wild West or whatnot, because it seems very strange. These subjects also looks like middle class and high class people that just been destroyed, things been taken from them, and they also look sick. Going inside the structure, it looks very big and wide. There's dull lights. Inside the structure, there are rows and aisles of different things on the shelf, which actually are old, and the things aren't even fresh. There's barely things on the shelves in this inside the structure, which feels like a big store, almost like Walmart, but it's not Walmart. It gives me a big empty Walmart store, and there's these subjects. They're in white baggy uniform, and they're just working around, and there's a few subjects that are inside that has been from outside, and they have the ability or the advance to get inside and be with those workers for a few hours or so. It seems like they're running tests on these sick individuals. It's very warm inside, like the power doesn't work, like the power only works for the dull lights, but everything else seems very tricky, and it's highly uncomfortable in here. Moving on out. Moving to the primary subject. I got a male subject, has a very long, saggy face, has a very greedy spirit. He's wealthy. He's playful, very sarcastic. If I met him, I wouldn't be surprised or shocked. I would actually have a conversation with this guy, but not for too long. He kind of creeps me out. Deep mind probe. His energy, he has lack of sympathy for the others that are caged in. It seems like he's the reason why they are caged in. This guy's a tricky guy. His face is like, so this is his face I'm getting, just a very saggy, blank, nonchalant face expression. Okay, moving towards those subjects. Deep mind probe of subjects. These subjects are very chaotic, they're angry. They want better care, better options for the situation they're in. They want the attention and they want to get out. It's so crowded. It's very uncomfortable. Majority of the subjects I'm seeing are black and white. There's other races here, but I'm seeing majority of white and black, like they're middle class, high class people. They seem to always been getting things, like they're used to getting stuff. They're used to being fed. They're not used to not eating every day or every other hour. these people that are cased in are wealthy people. Moving to the target activity, everything feels forced and military style. You have things above, the subjects below, and you have the people that are in the structure, and it just seems like they're just in the middle out of all this what's going around. Here's a structure, here's subjects. And then around and outside the gated area, there's loud noises, like noises from a sizzle and the glaring lights in the sky. It's very hunted. It's very hollow outside. Again, dark blue, purple sky. It's not late night. You're able to see what things that's going wrong. I'm so scared to be here. This area feels like a zombie apocalypse. Just a lot of screaming and yelling, and everybody is having a rage. It's crazy. But it definitely feels like a zombie apocalypse, just a very controlled zombie apocalypse. Like all the zombies are caged, and there's nothing but fights from a distance from that cage. The feeling of fighting for what's right and the feeling for fighting for what's being controlled. It's like it's a battle of who wants to run who, with the human target in the non-surface structure. So back to the non-surface structure, it's very wide, very large, feels man-made, but doesn't feel like it's been made in Earth. This non-surface structure is very dangerous, very powerful. No comparing to the power that the saggy face guy has, but they both are bumping heads.
Basic assaults for this target is land and structure. I'm noticing multiple subjects on land inside of a base surface structure. There's one non-surface structure above this surface structure. The surface structure is very large. There's multiple subjects on the inside of the structure. A lot of these subjects are males. Something's wrong. I'm noticing a issue or something that needs to be fixed, something that's not right inside of the surface structure. I'm sensing something's messed up. There's a disagreement, there's an argument, there's something not working, something's out of order. I'm noticing chaos, like an issue or something that needs to be solved involving this actual structure, like the actual structure has something wrong with it on the inside. I'm noticing subjects continuously complaining and arguing and loud sounds of like, hey man, fix this. Water. Something's not right with water or electricity. Or both. Or something's wrong with the electrical situation with the structure that's stopping the something's wrong with the electricity within the structure that's stopping the water from working correctly. Something's out of order, something's not working, something's out of service. Multiple subjects are males inside of this surface structure. I'm noticing noticing a group of subjects that are completely frustrated. Just naggingly angry and frustrated and complaining and arguing about something that's harsh on the inside of this structure. Like the area is just too combined with groups of subjects, and the water or the electricity is out of service or not working or messed up or dysfunctional, disorganized, not content, not happy emotions. Something's not right. I'm noticing something wet on the inside of this structure. Some fluid, some type of mushy, messy, dysfunctional situation that's creating a very disgusting smell in this environment. I'm noticing a lot of discontent, stress. Male subject with black hair. High levels of water. Something's wet. Something's really like mushy and messy, and it's hard for subjects to be inside of this structure. Certain subjects are wearing casual clothing. Sickness, pain, mess. I feel kind of like something's crawling on my skin. I'm noticing it's hard to be inside of this structure, like something's different, something's continuously altered, something's continuously changing in this structure that's not usual, it's not normal, it's out of norm. Like for these subjects, they're really surprised and disgusted and annoyed, and they're cold and dirty, and something just needs to be fixed about the inside of the structure. Like the structure's falling apart, but there's multiple people that's not like fixing it. There's groups of people, there's groups of subjects, there's crowds, it's rowdy, it's loud, it's annoying. It's a lot of subjects that are males that are just frustrated and discontent. The structure is falling apart, and I'm noticing something is just inside of this structure that is very wet, and it's bothering my skin. Subjects are just angry. The crowds of subjects that are rowdy and angry are covered in mess, like, or dirt, or something's dirty, like something about the issue is creating mess, like cringy mess, like it's not safe or not sanitary. Something's creating an argument that's continuously riled up within inside of this structure, and subjects are trying to escape or trying to get out of this environment, to the point where there's chaos and arguing and fighting. There's a worker that's wearing a uniform. I'm noticing a lot of fighting and I don't know how to describe a brawl of madmen in one area, but they just want to leave. They seem to be like it reminds me of a prison, kind of like multiple men inside of prison cells just going, "Hey, get me out of this place! It's dirty." But I'm feeling like they're trapped, or some sort of issue is creating confinement, and it's creating sickness, and it's disgusting, and people are riled up and angry, and they want to leave out of that environment because it's not safe. I'm noticing a lot of dirty water. Something's wet. And gushy and not clean. Obviously, I have. This environment continuously reminds me of a prison. I'm noticing that there's male subjects that are wearing uniforms, as well as male subjects that are wearing casual outfits. There's a lot of chaos and screaming and shouting, and there's lots of water getting inside of this surface structure. It's becoming messy and unsafe to be around. It's actually really hard to be inside of this structure, and this water is really uncleanly and dirty. It's a really uncleanly and dirty environment that reminds me of a prison, and the cause of the water issue is due to electricity or electronics, electric energy. There's just an electric buildup, or a stopping of electricity, or not working electricity. Something's out of service, something's not working, something's dysfunctional. It's an ongoing process that was ignored. I'm noticing lights not working or electricity not working, so it causes the reaction of water not working properly, or the dirtiness of the water. Subjects just want to be moved or relocated, and the subjects want to be shifted into a new location. Like the subjects want to be placed somewhere else, or they want to get out, but they are in a nasty, messy, not safe environment that stinks. I'm done with it.
Today we'll be exploring target 15370899. My basic gestalts are land, subjects, and structures. Okay, I see greens and grays, and there's a base surface. I also see that there's structures on the base surface. It's noticeably quiet here, and it seems to be like level topography. Okay, the land here feels natural and man-made, and I have male and female subjects here, and they all seem to be located inside of a structure on the base surface. Okay, so I've got this very large, like extravagant structure. It looks like it's pretty like big and rectangular, and then it has this like dome-looking top to it. So it has like a dome-looking top. I also have just subjects scattered around, and then just random other structures in the background that kind of all have like a square or rectangle shape to them. And there's also like most of my subjects are inside of this structure. I'm going to move to the target event. The energy here feels very heavy. It feels like a lot of deep and passionate emotions are here. I get this sense of like people who are arguing or debating. And then also it seems like the subjects kind of move around freely, but in kind of a restricted area, you know, so they're kind of all like, it feels like scattered movement, but it's all centered in one location. Okay, most of the subjects here feel male, and it feels like they're kind of like having a meeting, or, you know, a meeting of some sorts, but it feels very disorganized, and it feels like people are just kind of berating each other and like just arguing, really. It doesn't seem to be like cohesive. It feels very chaotic in a sense. It feels kind of like everyone's like a polar opposite. It feels like people view one thing and then there's someone else there that has like the complete opposite view, and they're just like bickering and going at it, and it doesn't seem like there's really a conclusion. It just feels like constant arguing. It seems like one side is kind of concerned with security and safety, and the other side is kind of like, it feels like they're only contributing to the conversation to keep the argument going. You know, it doesn't feel like they necessarily care about what's being discussed. They have other things on the back of their mind, so it kind of feels like, it just kind of feels like they're thinking about alternative things. They've got some other agenda on their mind, and that's what they care about, and they're just kind of worried about keeping everyone else like distracted, maybe. Yeah, and all you know, it's just in this confined area. It's like a large room, and there's just subjects in here, and they just seem to be arguing. I feel like there's like a lot of arm movements. It looks like people are kind of like with their arms up or like pointing at stuff, you know, and it just feels like there's subjects here that are like cold and calculated and just not really worried. Okay, I sense that there are two subjects here. Subject A feels female. She feels a little younger. She feels like maybe in her late 20s, early 30s. Pale skin, kind of has like a olivey undertone to it, and she seems to have like medium length brown hair. She feels very passionate. She feels like she's really caring about something. The emotions in her feel very strong and powerful. She seems to have on like this thin clothing, and she seems to be just like very full of like anger. The subject is on the base surface and inside of a structure, and it feels like she's in a room with like many other subjects. Moving on to subject B. Subject B feels like a male. He feels slightly older, like maybe in his like 50s, 60s. He seems to have on like thicker clothing, and he's got like this short, like gray brown hair. It looks like gray and brown kind of mixed together, kind of like a golden gray color. Okay, this subject feels like very more like lackluster, you know, maybe about like whatever subject A cares about. Subject B feels like he really don't care, and so but he feels equally as like fed up as her. So he's upset about something else, or he's passionate about his views, but regarding her views, it's like super dismissive, couldn't care less type of attitude. to me, he feels like he has kind of ulterior motives. He has something else on his mind. And he kind of gives off like this like bully energy, you know, like he pushes people around to get like what he wants, and he upsets everybody else to get a reaction out of them, you know, just like that kind of bully mentality. That's kind of what he feels like to me. And then he also seems to be located on the base surface inside of this structure with subject A. So they're both together in the same room. So this is kind of what it looks like. It looks kind of like, this to me looks like a row of seats, or like a panel. Let's see that panel. You know, something where just people will sit here all together and kind of line up. This looks more of like an open area, like there's just, all I see out here are just subjects. And when I say that, like everyone in the room kind of feels chaotic, and it's like they're kind of yelling at each other. It was kind of like, you know, they're having a conversation. They're having a conversation. They're having a conversation. You know, you get the point, but basically it just feels like very unorganized, and they all seem to be just in like this like giant like auditorium type of space, you know, just a big room with a lot of chairs and a lot of subjects. I'm going to move to the original cause of the event. Okay, so I'm on the base surface inside of structure, and there's subjects in here, and it feels like a focused gathering. These subjects feel mostly male to me. They do feel like very like tired and just like quiet. Kind of maybe like they've been at this for like days or weeks, you know, like these subjects just feel like exhausted. I also have like this sense of like very like seriousness in this room with these subjects. So these subjects kind of feel like they make crucial decisions. You know, they are the ones who make the hard decisions. And all these subjects, they feel like, you know, they have the ability to pass like life-altering decisions. So there seems to be like, you know, a main subject here that feels like, you know, their presence is important, you know, like kind of, you know, like the president, you know, he's pretty freaking important. So it's kind of like that. So it looks like this. So this is kind of what that room looks like here. It's kind of like, this feels like the main subject, you know, the one that's kind of in charge. And these all feel like just like a squad. Like, you know, they're kind of just backing up the main person. And this is just like a small room. There's some objects in the room, and like it looks kind of like there's like beams kind of coming to the center, you know, just like the ceiling. Okay, so probing the other subjects here, they all seem to like bandwagon onto the main dude. It feels like, you know, there seems to be like opposing views, like people kind of like turned off by some things, but for the most part, they're sticking behind their dude. And overall, this room just feels like very small, and it feels like a small conference room of some sorts. The main subject here, he does feel like I said, he has like high power, so it feels like, you know, like a general, or just someone who does make these crucial decisions and has the ability to do so, and everyone just kind of does as they're told. And he just feels like he's very serious, very like critically thinking, you know. It just feels like he is taking everything in and trying to give out the best results. Just overall, I get the sense that these subjects are trying to handle business, but without like including as many people as possible. It's like the least amount of people they can get together and like make these decisions for, that's what they're gonna do. So it just feels like it's a little hush-hush exclusive. This subject, he seems to have like a big face and like these thick eyebrows, and he has like shorter golden hair, and he seems to have on just like these really nice clothes, really like thick. They feel like really well made. He seems to have like this light pale skin tone with like this yellow warm pink undertone. He also has just like this like large nose and very thin lips and very thin eyes as well.
All right, Rock, look, this is great. This is for Human News, and we're doing Human News for June. So we don't know what events are going to be. This is all done blind. This is a session for a news event that will be of somehow interested to us during the month of June. And why don't you just start by describing what you got in this session? Of course, everyone knows it's blind because we don't know what the news events are going to be for the next month. So this session was done in May as a forecast for some type of thing that will happen, some type of event that will happen in the month of June. So, Rock, why don't you just describe what you got here? You're using the remote viewing methods that were talked to you by Dick Algar, and this is a form of a military remote viewing. It's not CRV, but it was something that came out of Special Forces. So why don't you just take it over and tell us what's in this session?
It is interesting, the methodologies, because I think I pick up a lot of topological information, and so that sort of makes sense since its inception was with Army intelligence. But let's see as I got into this target, the first, after my initial ideograms, the first probe I did, I got this sense of a massive mountain, and as I started depicting this, I could feel, sense the stress, great amounts of stress in the earth. And I think I sort of swirled those, flaking the edges of the mountain to show the stress. So whether there was an actual seismic event or just pressure and stress, that's what I sensed over a vast area, but sort of culminating in this mountain-like object.
And what's that word after the word abundant? Abundant flows, is that right?
Flora. It was a beautiful area, out in the way wide open.
So it's sort of volcano-ish.
You know, I tried to, I did some probes to see if that was magma coming out, but it wasn't. It's the stress within the topological area that seems to focus on this mountain.
So we're not talking about any type of a volcanic type of a thing, but some type of a flow
of energy
around a mountain of some type. Interesting. Okay, what do we have next?
Let's see. You know, I picked up an industrial area, and this seemed like it had very interesting features. And when you get that, sometimes when you get that type of detail in the features, you're on to a target. There were these angles in a port structure, as well as some industrial or military-like structures. And I got a sense of these towers and that they were more about production. Something being made, some port where goods are transferred. I got that kind of sense from this particular target.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, you have here industrial smells, production, but you said or military, so It could have some type of production related to technical stuff.
But near the water, with this sharp edges of a large dock-like structure.
I see. Oh, I see. So that's a dock in the picture.
Yeah, coming in from the other, like paved or constructed areas, very sharp angles and a large area for boats or ships to come in.
Okay.
And I may have started to depict, you know, a boat in that center as I was just doing my sweeps. Sort of looks like the angle of a boat, but.
Okay. So, Rock. Okay, what do we have next here with this next page? You have this page 4, Land 3.
So page 4, Land 3 is interesting. I'm depicting a large landmass near the ocean and in distress in several pockets, areas that there's some kind of damage, smoke, not quite, but somewhat reminiscent to the pockets of fires that you might see on the California coast in the spring or especially in the summertime. But it wasn't that type of fire. It was damage or stress caused from something from above.
So you have an urban area next to water, fires sort of breaking out throughout the urban area, and damage from above. That might blend in with the mountain idea also, if there was also damage related to the mountain that created some type of a flow. We'll have to wait and see.
Possibly. There's hills in the background, and that's why I somewhat reminiscent of California. Now this next target, I've marked it as Water 1, Artifact 1, and a very strange visual that I got during this session. I got a large black object that seemed to be at or near the water, but it was not in the water, but disturbing the water, and I got a sense of magnetic opposition or that type of force that was keeping this large object from going in the water but yet disturbing the water. If you can sort of pick up that visual. That's what I'm trying to depict here. I've said a large black cube hovering over or partially in the water, and a sensation of a lot of energy. So it's sort of a strange target to pick up, but nonetheless, it was very razor sharp.
This is going to be interesting. This is going to be interesting to see what happens in June with regard to that. Okay. Yeah. So what do you have next on your page 6 here?
You know, when I'm in the session, I'm entraining myself through a binaural theta, and I was hard pressed as I picked up this visual and the sensation of these 3 different frequencies while I'm going through the focus that the binaural theta gives me. I got to a clipping point where I said, wow, am I imagining this other signal, or is this part of the signal that I'm listening to right now?
Now, Rock, wait, for those people who don't know what a binaural theta is, that means you had earbuds in your ear and you were listening to music. Is that right?
I was listening to a tone, whoa, 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 which is a variance in about by 4 hertz in the right and left.
Yeah, that's very similar to things that they use, for example, for our audience that may be interested, at the Monroe Institute in Faber, Virginia. They were sort of famous for pioneering that type of research. So go ahead.
So I picked up these frequencies, and just 3 frequencies that were out of phase, pulsing, and it grabbed my attention. So I drew the visual, and it's one of those, you just keep on going through your process and put whatever image or whatever sensation you get, and just keep on moving. So I'll move on to the next tile.
Okay. All right. So what are we dealing with? Page 7?
Yeah, page 7 is another interesting aspect of this target. I got the sensation of a lot of many objects together in the air. They seemed solid, not living things, so it wasn't birds, but they were moving through the air very quickly with a whir. Like, got the sensation almost swarm-like.
You're also saying here that they're not living. Or question, or you didn't pick, you have a question mark after that. So it didn't come across as like a living thing, but you questioned it.
Not quite living, but yeah, the question mark was just, that wasn't thoughtful. That was just part of that line of data coming in. So I wasn't sure. Yep.
That's interesting, but it was like a swarm. And it had a sort of a whir sound. That'll be interesting. Okay, what do you have next? You have your page, another image, another impression from page 8.
Yeah, this one was interesting. It was a very interesting and the aspect of the target, the man and the woman, the man being while he was protecting the female aspect of this target, she was constrained or restricted in motion. And I did a deep probe on both, and the sensations I got from the female was restrained, frustrated, disheveled, scared, fear impulse. And I won't say her captor, I want to say a protector or guard is focused, determined, but also in charge of some level of custody, because there was not a freedom of motion.
So yeah, okay. And what about the people in the back?
Yeah, I wondered what about the people in the back. They just came in free form as I was sketching this out. And then when I go back, it looks like one person's holding paper, another person may be holding an implement or a weapon, and then the person in the middle is standing there. And sometimes those little impulses in your drawings have some significant meaning. So,
yeah. Okay. We've got that. What do we have next on page 9? That seems weird.
Could it have to do with the our pandemic? But in my meditation, and as I was in the zone doing this target, I just had these words: havoc, pandemonium, fear, mayhem, and it seemed like a construct. The sensation, the vibrations, the frequencies I felt, it was like a programmed show or script, and it had to run through its course. These like if you slam a rock into the water, all of those frequencies or waves that emanate from that disturbance have to settle out. So I think that's why I have all the wavy lines. It was a really interesting and sort of very frequency-oriented sensation, right? All of those emotes or frequencies coming to you, and then you defining them with how you feel and depicting that on the frame. So that's remote viewing.
Yeah. Well, what I'm picking up here is you've got projected energetics, like a show, almost like there's a script, like somebody's doing it. And you have here havoc and pandemonium, fear and mayhem. So this event, however it turns out, looks like, in part at least, it's not just a natural thing that happened. It looks like it's something that's scripted, something that involves projected energetics. I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but I always wondered, this is the type of thing we would sort of think about if there was a false flag regarding aliens, so that the government could seem like they were protecting everybody from evil aliens, sort of a script. I'm not saying that's what this is. It's just that this type of thing is what I always thought would, if they ever did a false flag type of thing, fake an alien attack to sort of.
But this may be, as you see the depiction, it could be the collective consciousness reaction, and those waves having to settle through the field of human consciousness if there is a large event. We've just experienced that. Part and parcel, this could be the frequencies and waves of the event we're currently in, or it could be a new event coming down the pike, or it could be my own awareness and perception of what I sense going around us, you know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, that this sort of matches some of the other impressions you have, which is the smoke coming out of the urban area in various parts, the swarm of seemingly not alive things passing in the air. It's obviously some type of event. The man protecting the woman. There's some type of fear event that affects an urban area. Something's in the air. And we also have the idea of a scripted event, like a show, creating sort of havoc and pandemonium. But it seems like it's controlled pandemonium. That's what I'm picking up. Is that how you would think of it?
Yeah, I can agree with that observation, sure.
I'm not picking up the idea from your description of a event that's out of control by natural forces that no one can do anything about. It seems like someone's doing something and they know what they're doing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've bounded it. You know, I bounded those words with the energy, and I really got, like, script was a big sensation, if you will. And there's some comfort in that.
Yeah.
Because human consciousness rises above, you know, these anomalies and gets right through it, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
And I also want to emphasize to the audience that my interpretations or my suggestions in this sort of interview format that we're going through this session with, those are not data. The data are what Rock is saying right now. And my sort of interpretation, false flag type of thing, is just me talking because we're looking at a session that's already been done. And it's interesting and inevitable for people to sort of say, well, what does this mean? And that's what I was, so don't take my words as what the session is. The session is what Rock is saying, and I'm just sort of looking at it and speculating.
Yeah, and you know, I think I've learned through doing these targets to be pretty neutral as you're going through. I don't get a rise on any of the information. Something Dick told me a long time ago that sort of helped me have a breakthrough was simply this: put everything down. Because the one thing you might withhold that you think that you've connected and start to AOL could be the most important aspect of the target. We're doing these freeform, and we're doing these with a happy heart to bring that data back, and we prove oftentimes we do a pretty good job at that. And so I think for me the breakthrough, like I said with Dick and his coaching, was simply you got to be unbridled, and just to do this you just let it flow. So whatever's there is what's there, and I don't try to analyze any of this stuff. You know, that's the people that are looking at this, and the analyst or the targeteer's job.
Yeah. Now I want to mention to the audience also, when Rock said the word AOL, that stands for analytic overlay, and that's when the mind sort of makes an analysis and overlays it on top of the data. And that is a word that is used in the style of remote viewing that he learned, and it's also used in the CRV or controlled remote viewing format. We don't use that at Farsight, so you don't see the Farsight viewers that were trained here internally using that. We use the word deduction, which has the same meaning. It's a conclusion that the conscious mind makes, but it also has the concept of removing it from the data flow. So when there's an AOL, an analytic overlay, the CRV people or the people using the methods that Rock's using, they're acknowledging that the mind has made a conscious analysis, and with that, we are assuming it's mostly wrong, but there's usually something in it that is correct, but you don't know what that thing is. With a deduction, it's the exact same thing. Deductions are almost always wrong, but there's something in that deduction that is correct, but you don't know what that is. So you declare it and you put it down, and so on. Anyway, so when Rock uses words like analytic overlay, when you hear the other viewers say deduction, we're talking the same thing. Okay, so Rock, what do you have next in your page?
Let's see, what do I have next? Oh, this was pretty interesting. So nice place, a very large, very modern structure that is, it seemed to be built into a hillside or cliffside. It's modern is what I picked up. Vegetation, near the water, very close to the water. But I also picked up a level of commotion in vehicles, something going on at this, and I almost want to say a facility because of its size, but it also seems to be more, it would be more akin to a very large private property, but a lot of commotion.
Looks like part of it is lifted up on stilts or something.
Yeah, that's the sense I got.
What about those things on the bottom on the ground? Are they
Those were vehicles, just swashes of quickly drawn vehicle.
Would they probably be on sand or on a paved surface, or
I didn't get soft or mushy, so I would say a paved surface. It's not depicted there. It almost looks like they're on the beach. I didn't have that kind of discernment at that level of target aspect. So my guess would be that they're on some kind of level ground or road.
Okay, but you do have your massive structure. So whatever this structure is, it's sort of a large one. Is that correct? And you have the idea of commotion. And what does high veg stand for?
High vegetation. So
I see.
The sense of a lot of maybe decorative or a lot of vegetation around the property. And also, as I look back on this sketch, and I didn't recall that, but it looks like there's a possibility that some of that structure is embedded into the hillside as well.
That's what it looks like from the sketch.
Yeah.
And you're saying it's modern looking?
Very modern looking, yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you have for your next page? This is page 11 of your session. That's very interesting. I wondered about this when I saw it. I said, what the heck?
This was a sensation of a massive pressure shift. So a downward flow, and I looked at this afterwards and I said, was that cyclonic? And when we go to the next, some target aspects, there sort of seems to be an association. But I got the impression of a massive pressure shift, pressure differential, and a lot of downward force.
It looks like it's in the shape of a funnel.
It could be. That's probably what I was trying to depict, not consciously, but.
And it looked, whatever it is, it seems like this shift has something rapid in it, something fast.
Right.
Compression, reduce, something drawn in.
Massive downward PSI, massive downward pressure or pressure reduction.
That's very interesting. We'll have to see how that fits in with this. Okay, we have this next on your page 12, which is really interesting. It looks like a boat of some type.
Well, it's a recovery ship. And what was interesting about this target, as I started to draw my impression, what I got significantly was what's being picked up first. What's being picked up is in the water.
It looks like a rocket. It looks like a rocket.
Yeah, it could look like a rocket. And I wasn't aware.
There's a lot of pointy.
Say again?
There's a lot of pointy things.
This is not a pointy thing. The actual object is the more orthogonal object that's below the water level. Those are lines or anchors to pull this object out of the water.
I see. So everyone in the audience understand that those curved lines that are on the top of the object that make it look like a rocket, those are not part of the object. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
They're like lines or cables.
It's my poor rendition of some kind of anchoring lines to pull this object out of the water.
So you have this recovery ship and with the crane pulling something out of the water.
That is damaged.
And it's damaged.
Yep.
And it's heavy. You have it here that it's heavy also.
And it's complex.
And complex. Okay. So Rock, let's go on to the next page. This is the last page of the session, page 13. Now you're going to have to explain this one to me. I can't figure this one out.
Yeah, this came as a really, it was interesting, and then I went back to that pressure shift viewing this session after I was out of the session. I came back and I said, could that be a weather pattern? But when I picked this up, I got this, just drew this huge sweeping object, full of energy, almost undulating, that was very dangerous and powerful. And I think in my palette, I colored it this color because of the danger, because of the ferocity of whatever this is. And as I looked at the pressure differential, and I looked at this sweeping line, I'm going, well, you know, it could be the sense of a very large weather pattern, something happening, very dangerous, destructive weather pattern. So that's certainly a possibility. I don't want to, you know, we'll wait and see, but that's the best.
It's an energy field of some type, almost undulating, dangerous, powerful, huge, and sweeping. So this whole session could be interpreted as a weather-related event. That would make sense with the funnel type thing as well, the cyclone type of thing as well, and near a coast with a modern structure. And let me see, havoc, pandemonium, fear, mayhem. That, and you know, in that page, just I'm going back to page 9 here, where you had these energy, these emotional vibrations, talking about havoc, pandemonium, fear, mayhem, and you have this sort of cloud on top. So that could be weather related as well.
Yeah, it was an interesting session. I mean, regarding sessions, sometimes you come away with a little, sometimes you come away with a lot. And sometimes you get into like one frame that you could work on for hours, actually, just with the information flow. And sometimes you don't get a whole lot. And this whole session was devoid of some of the complexity or aspects of some sessions, but it had, you know, there was some data, and I came away feeling like, well, I've got something.
Yeah, I'm just trying to connect the dots a little bit. You have this, earlier on your page 7, you have these many small objects like a swarm, and that would also fit a weather type of event. But if it had high levels of wind associated. But in this session, you don't have weather-related stuff, so it makes me doubt my weather interpretation is correct, because especially when you have the smoke coming out of the urban area, it doesn't really seem like a weather-related event. Now, this is one of those fascinating things where we have all the images and it's hard to sort of identify what it is. I might mention that if we were doing this as a full project at Farsight, this would be one session, and we'd have you go back and do another session, and we'd have other viewers also go back, and we'd hit the target over and over and over again until we finally figured out what was going on.
I think that's what the our viewers sometimes miss, is that we can go much deeper. The sessions that we do nominally, our average sessions, we do a lot of work to get these sessions done, but there are many more levels that we can do with these sessions to get incredible detail and fidelity.
Yeah, that would be in a situation where, like our mystery projects, where somebody, the tasker, knows the basic target, but you know, there's something verifiable in it, but you need to know a whole bunch more, and you know that you have to send the viewers back and back and back until you figure out what that stuff is. This is a little different because this is a future target, and we don't really know. We don't have any idea of what it is. So to get that level of fidelity that you're talking about, we would have to send a lot of people back sort of to the same thing over and over and over till a picture finally emerged of what it actually is, which is fun. I mean, that's what the remote viewing thing is all about. But you're absolutely correct. As you could viewers, but really you're talking about the audience, they don't quite, it's very hard for a lot of people in the audience to understand that you don't get everything in just one session. It's not like you close your eyes and suddenly you're there and you explain what happens. You get images, you get impressions, and you have to piece these images together, and the procedures you use give you the best possible chance of getting as many of these impressions as possible. When we have projects, you you don't get everything from one session. And the audience sometimes says something like, yeah, if remote viewing is real, give me next week's lottery numbers. I mean, each one of these projects involves a huge amount of information, and you get in these impressions and you're trying to piece it together. And the idea that everything is clear, high resolution, like you get with your own eyes, is a very great misunderstanding of how remote viewing does work. So what Rock is an expert in assembling these impressions, these images, these perceptions of hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell, and putting them down in an organized fashion. But still, we have to often do a lot of work afterwards to get enough of them until we can figure out what's going on. But nonetheless, this is enough that we will be able to identify what the event is when it actually happens, and then it'll make sense out of it when it does happen.
One observation is that if you have, say, 12 tiles, and I'll call them tiles, and we expand on those tiles and probe deeper, whether the personas within those tiles. But when you have that amount of data and you reflect post, say if it's a future item, 30 days or 45 days in advance, and then you do a checksum to see what happened and what didn't, can I sort of deduce through relevant news items, through evidence, we put those together and say this is very close to what, to an event that actually happened. But there may be, say, out of 12 tiles, there may be 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 things that happen. But think of the things that we can't verify that could possibly have happened, but be totally under our ability to know, right? Yeah. And so I think that there's a lot of credit should go to the remote viewers as they uncover stuff. The audience, may not see that event occurring, but it's just not occurring within our awareness.
Okay, so let's draw some conclusions from these data. The world is a mess, and it is going to get messier. I guess that about wraps it up. But more specifically, start by reminding yourself that George Floyd was killed on the 25th of May, 2020, and the May riot started after that. With that in mind, as we look into June, we have a report by Aziz Brown saying that there will be major protests in an urban area with subjects on the streets who are protesting other subjects who are located inside structures and who are feeling superior to the subjects on the streets. Now that session was completed on May 12, 2020. Then we have a session by Princess Jeaneé suggesting no less than a catastrophe. The mass is out of control, smoke coming out of buildings, roadblocks, barricades, widespread destruction, buildings getting closed down. Now her session was completed on May 18, 2020. Then Melena Hall reports on what she calls a zombie apocalypse, which of course does not mean actual zombies, but an out-of-control situation that resembles that type of thing. Massive or significant levels of confinement, struggles for control with the masses versus the elites, and Melena's session was done on the 18th of May. And there was even a hint of a behind-the-scenes possibility of extraterrestrial influence. Then Kahmia Dunson reported on 2 groups of subjects, controllers and the masses. The controllers are meeting secretly, making life-changing decisions that will affect the lives of the masses. Now, Kahmia's session was done on the 22nd of May. Then, Arkie reports on a series of events that suggest major widespread burning in an urban area, with havoc, pandemonium, and mayhem. Finally, Trudy Benjamin reports on what seems to be a prison or possibly a structure where major confinement is taking place. It is out of control both structurally and with disease. The confined population in the structure is mostly or entirely males. Okay, remember what I told you in our last edition of Farsight's Human News Show? I spent considerable time explaining how our universe works on the level of multiple timelines, and what we do is to get a sample of future timelines with our various reports to get an idea of what the general nature of those timelines is like. This approach worked amazingly well last month in May. So, what we have this month, June 2020, are 6 very similar reports, and that is tremendous overlap across remote viewers. Moreover, our remote viewers were working at home in May because of the coronavirus pandemic, so they were not comparing notes or talking with one another. Everyone was in isolation. And then I am sitting here in my office going over all these sessions saying, what the blazes? What? Look at this. I have been doing these remote viewing studies since the 1990s, and I have never seen anything like this. So if we are wrong for the month of June, we will be really wrong, and I mean totally. It can happen. But I am not sure I would have a good explanation for why we are wrong if we are wrong. The future timelines for Earth this month seem to be filled with havoc, pandemonium, and mayhem, to quote Arkie. So, for lack of a better way to sum it up, this is the zombie apocalypse edition of Farsight's Human News. I didn't expect it to happen this way, friends, and I am really interested on a personal and professional level to see how this month turns out. I hope we can all watch it together. Now, if it turns out that we are wrong for the month of June 2020 and say June turns out to be a peaceful month, that does not mean that we will go away. It simply would mean that we got experimental results that we need to better understand. We will still be here, rain or shine, still trying to figure out how to use remote viewing to benefit humanity's struggle for freedom. So that is it for our June 2020 edition of Farsight Human News, the news before it happens, brought to you free on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Please also join us next month in July 2020 for another look into the future of Earth humans. Also, be sure to look for the new releases on farsightprime.com this month, including the Farsight ET News on June 7th, the July 8th live intelligence briefing with myself, the major new mysteries release on May 15th, the mystery of Göbekli Tepe, the next in our Farsight interview series, and the Farsight economic forecast focusing on the SP 500 for the next 2 months. I'm Courtney Brown, Director of the Farsight Institute.